come back to that reading in a moment. But a question, first of all. On this Remembrance Sunday, and as we're about to make our way to the War Memorial at the end of our service, and on the 11th, we're also going to be up there as well. I wonder what people will make of Stopsley War Memorial in 50 years' time. 100 years' time. I was at the Vauxhall War Memorial Cenotaph earlier for a service there. For those from Vauxhall who died, I wonder what people will make of that. It's already surrounded by flats, Karen, rather than the factory from which went the War Memorial came from. So it's a different environment. At the moment, it's honoured, obviously. But what will it be like in 50 years' time, 100 years' time? Will remembrance still happen? Will there be poppies still that are bought? Since last year's remembrance, we've had two significant relevant events that have occurred, which are kind of an ending, or is it a springing forward to a new sort of remembrance? And the two events I'm referring to are the 80th anniversaries for VE and VJ Day, at the end of the Second World War, 80 years ago now. When I first started doing remembrance services, there were still people around who had fought in the First World War, and widows, and certainly children of those who lost loved ones in the First World War. And now, of course, 80 years on from the end of the Second World War, that's beginning to fade into history. Still a living history, still got people around us who were around. My parents were children during the Second World War. There's still people around who fought during the Second World War. But it's beginning to fade into history. What will that mean for remembrance? We still pause, don't we? We're pausing today on this Remembrance Sunday. People will be pausing all around our country, sometimes gathering at war memorials, sometimes in church, sometimes maybe at home as they watch the events at the Cenotaph in London. We still pause in remembrance. It seems to be a living, vital thing still in our nation. People still buy the poppies. The poppies with their paper stems this year, I don't know about you for finding it, it's harder to make them stay in your lapels. Have you found that? But still, we can pin them on, and we still will. And those who are remembering, it's not just those of a certain age, whatever age you want to say that is. Yesterday, I went to watch two of my grandsons play football, which was wonderful. And I didn't see the whole of Rafi's match at Breachwood Green, but I saw the second half. And then I was at Emmanuel's match over at Stopsley Common. And I was really struck and quite moved that before the match, both teams gathered around the centre circle, and they put their arms around each other, and they really reverently and seriously and thoughtfully paused for, I think it was, a minute's silence. They did it really, really respectfully. So it's not just an older generation thing, but it's something in our nation. And I was especially moved, actually, because I don't know if you've read James Dyer's book about Stopsley. I know many of you would have done. But in there, it mentions Stopsley Common, and it says that 111 years ago, 1914, thousands of young men, not that much older than Emmanuel and his teammates, they're 12, 13, not much older, thousands of young men camped on Stopsley Common in tents, as they trained and as they prepared to go off to Flanders fields in the First World War. And in fact, one of my predecessors, the vicar of the time here at St Thomas's, went over there and conducted a large service for them before they went off to France and Belgium. So it's quite moving to see those boys, arms around each other, pausing in memory on the very spot where 111 years earlier other young men had gathered. Very moving. We still pause to remember. And I think we will pause to remember for many years to come. When we pause, we remember the First and the Second World War, of course, even though they're fading into history. We also remember other conflicts that have happened since then, and indeed on this very day. There's conflicts around the world, as we know. So reading from Genesis chapter 4 talks about the reality that there is hatred between brothers and sisters of humanity. Cain was envious of Abel. He'd offered a gift to God and it was very much accepted. He felt his hadn't been accepted in the same way. He was envious and he killed his brother. Terrible. Blood soaking into the ground, just as we think of blood soaking into the ground of the Somme, Ypres, and around Europe and around the world in the First and the Second World War. And of course Cain says these memorable words, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And of course, as he said that, he was sort of saying, well, no, I'm not. But actually, there's a pause there, really, isn't there? Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, you are your brother's keeper. We are our brothers and sisters' keepers. We have a responsibility to one another here today, but around the world as well. Not to go the way of Cain, but to seek instead to go the way of Christ. The boys yesterday had their arms around one another, and metaphorically, if not actually physically, we put our arms around one another today. We put our arms around those in our community around us, around those in our world, in our country as they pause, but around the world, including those who have remembrance on a different day or maybe no remembrance. But we put our arms metaphorically around another. We are our brothers and sisters' keeper. And as we do so, we remember that verse that is often used at remembrance and the biblical truth that is shown, that was lived out in the life of Christ and his death for us. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. We remember sacrifice today. We remember the sacrifice of Christ, that he may forgive us, restore us, and build his kingdom of love with our arms around each other in memory and in commitment to live for God's grace and peace. Let us pray.